So, welcome everyone to the Make Vegas Pay podcast live here, presented by MVP Consulting. We are with our special guest, Gino Donati and Maddie Betts from the Discipline to Gens. Welcome, guys. It's an honor to have you on the pod today. So, just a quick question for both of you to get us started here before we jump into March Madness. But, our listeners might not know much about what the Discipline to Gens are. It kind of sounds like an oxymoron when you think of a degen and then them being disciplined. So, just tell us a little bit more and inform our listeners about what a disciplined degen is.
Maddie, you want to go?
Yeah, for sure. So Gino and I met actually a couple of years back, literally from TikTok. I saw what he was doing. I liked what he was doing. He saw what I was doing. He liked what I was doing. We learned very quickly that we lived 30 minutes apart in South Florida. Gino always jokes that he's like the older dad of the group. So he's approaching 40. I just turned 30. We've both had a lot of years in our lives where we've done really stupid shit gambling, growing up, betting more than we can afford, casino games, you name it. So we've kind of been through every single thing you can imagine within sports betting or gambling. And we started Discipline the Gens because we thought it was something that we needed 10 years ago, right? When we were in college or when we were growing up. And yet you're right. You're definitely right. It's an oxymoron. And I think that's why we really that's why we started the brand, is we want people to understand that like being a Discipline the Gen doesn't mean you can't have fun. It just means like you also shouldn't be blowing your bankroll every month and then demonizing gambling until you restart it again. So it's kind of a middle ground of like, hey, use data, use insights, use our community, use our algos, understand what you're betting on and why, and understand bankroll management, but also have fun. If you want to do parlays, if you want to do DFS teams, if you want to do long shot bets, like there's nothing wrong with that too. Like most people in our community are definitely not going pro. So it's really just about having fun with it, being smart, understanding what and why you're betting. And if Gino wants to add anything.
I agree with everything Maddie said. And also, honestly, it's like, if you think of it as like a spectrum, you got a straight degen on one side and you got a crazy disciplined person on the other. Like we're waving back and forth between it. Like there are days, even though they're EV positive and algo plays, like there are days where I have 15 plays out. And what is that like? Is that disciplined? 15 plays in one day? So like I'll tell people like, if you're not going to listen to my quarter unit, half unit nonsense, please don't bet 2-3 units on each of these and have half your bankroll out there. So that's one thing. And then I joke that I'm making Maddie. You guys remember those Netflix and chill Halloween costumes? Like one Netflix and one's chill. I'm gonna have discipline and Maddie's gonna have degen on his. So yeah, it really is just about like we all know who we are deep down, and like nothing makes me happier than applying all my units on one game that I love. But then we have to pull each other back to the middle. So that's kind of where it came from.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, you want to have a system, you want to be smart when you bet, but again, it is betting. You want to have some fun there. Before I let Simon jump in with a couple of questions, since we are talking about being a disciplined degen, do you guys have any betting stories about maybe the wildest bet that you won, or maybe a bad beat that you had? Kind of anything that comes to mind, a huge underdog that maybe won in your favor. So I'll let you guys start with that.
Good, Gino. Gino has a good story.
Recently, I had punk ass University of Miami against Florida State at halftime. They were up like 30. For anyone that hasn't heard this story, I'll keep it short because some people have. My sickest bet ever. There's a really good system in the NFL that a lot of people don't know about, and it's taking the division. So the losing team in the NFL, the Super Bowl, take a team out of their division to make it to the Super Bowl. That team went far. They lost, went out of their shells. They're beat up. So if y'all remember, Cam Newton lost the Super Bowl. That next year, I took the Atlanta Falcons. So I had one unit to win 28.5. And I think you all know which Super Bowl that was. And I didn't hedge one dime. So I had 28.5 units coming to Papa, and then I didn't. And it all happened in about 1 second half and a short overtime.
It's tough. I remember that Super Bowl too. All the Pats fans just in shambles at halftime, and then everything just changed. Maddie, what about you?
Oh man, I wouldn't even know where to start. I've had some crazy highs and lows, especially on the tables. the tables are probably more interesting stories. I've had a night at the Bellagio in Las Vegas where my brother and we ran 30K on the blackjack table to 330,000 in like 3 or 4 hours. And long story short, we threw about half of it back over the next few days. So that was years ago.
These dudes ran up a house on the
Yeah,
blackjack.
we ran up a house and we
Oh,
settled
man.
for a car pretty much. And the worst part is we had this run the first night we got there. We were on a 5 or 6 day trip. If it would have happened towards the end of the trip, it would have been a lot easier to just get out of there way ahead. As far as sports betting, Gino, I mean, the Eagles this year, right? Most of you guys know I'm a huge Eagles fan. I had the future bet on the Eagles preseason. I had the Jalen Hurts MVP bet. I got second on both of those bets. Jalen Hurts was set the front runner for the MVP most of the season. Obviously, he lost to Patrick Mahomes and then the Eagles in the Super Bowl. I didn't hedge on either of those. So similar story to Gino. But the Eagles, the Super Bowl was like a 30K swing to me. And that's just because I had that preseason bet at 20-1 on them to win the Super Bowl. And then I ended up like doubling and tripling down. I took their money line and points and everything. So I would say that's one of the bigger sports ones.
You also, dude, it's not quite a bad beat because Mahomes had a nasty year, but you had Jalen Hurts preseason MVP. That was 20 something.
People laughed. Yeah, people laughed when I made that TikTok video earlier in the year. I thought he had it. I mean, that injury really kind of put him in second or third.
People are going to argue because they don't know football, but I had Niners Chiefs as my Super Bowl matchup preseason, and I'm telling you, if Brock doesn't go down, the Niners are right in that game. I'm not saying they're locking it or winning it, but the Niners were, all my bias aside, one of the sharpest plays of the playoffs. The Niners money line at Philly from all line movement distribution, but we got some sick ones. We also got some good ones. You know, it's worse is you remember the down more than you remember the up, because the up.
Oh, definitely.
I'm up. I start firing. Like I'll just start firing. You know, you're popping bottles. You're at bars buying 20 shots for everyone that you can reach out to. So, but this is what it's about, man. I've told my wife the day we met. I was a bookie at the time. I was like, I'm just letting you know right now. I'll be gambling on sports every day, 365 days a year for the whole time you know me. And that's not changing.
Gino, kind of going off that, the bookie days, at what point did you realize those days were over and that you could have a bigger market with Bet Openly and pursuing other ventures other than being a bookie there?
Yeah. A lot of people don't know this side of the story. So I'm from San Francisco. After I graduated San Diego State, I moved back, and I was pretty big as a bookie to Silicon Valley. And a lot of people don't know that I was Venmo's #1 user like 12 years ago. I had over like $300 and something $1,000 sent to me on Venmo. I got a trophy that said, you're 0.00 user. And then they blocked my account, investigated everyone on it, and I was sweating balls. Mind you, I was only 27 at the time. It's a long time ago, maybe 28. So I wasn't tripping too hard. I still thought I was invincible. But yeah, like digitally, I got a bunch of people kicked off of Venmo. And that's when I kind of knew like it was a problem, but I didn't get prosecuted or anything. So I was like,
That's wild, Gino.
So then I moved to Argentina, and I was doing a lot with Bitcoin. And the problem that a lot of people don't know, when I love Bitcoin, but like it goes up and down pretty heavy. I would literally like have a good month. It's all ebbs and flows with booking. Like you net your 10%, but you got to basically not spend the money because you need to give it back. The guys win, they give back. Bro, I was coming out down sometimes because the guys would lose when Bitcoin's high, pay me 1 Bitcoin, and then it'd go down 20% and they'd win half back, and I'm giving them back the fucking Bitcoin. And I'm like, holy shit, my book's up dollars, but I have no way to get people assets. I'm blocked on Venmo. I'm blocked on Zelle. PayPal kicked me off. So then I was like, I don't know what to do. So then I was down there. I tried to start an offshore, and I went to Panama, opened accounts. They wanted me to buy a condo, and it got super muddy. But I basically said like, fuck, all I really do is rob Peter to pay Paul. Why don't I just build a site that these two dudes just take each other's bets? They deal with their own Bitcoin bullshit. They deal with all that. And I just take the 1%. And that's where it came from.
That's an amazing story. I hadn't actually heard that yet, Gino. So Love
Yeah,
that.
I don't tell because I'm trying to get legit. I don't want people to know like, yeah, I'm fucking 86 for Venmo for life. If anyone like had me do a tournament with them,
You
why is
got
my
all
wife
of
sending
Venmo
you?
on this live. All the
Yeah.
Venmo executives are
It's
on
my
here.
wife. My wife sends every one of my things because of that. So
Gotcha. Well, we were just talking about like, some of your futures bets. I know you guys do a lot of that with NFL and such. And didn't mention like hedging there for us and like our guys. We always send out, if we're taking a money line dog, hedge alerts via text. So they kind of know, like they don't have to take it. It's up to them if they want to do it, but we're providing that value and information. Do you ever hedge your pregame underdog bets, and kind of what's your thought process, generally speaking, with that concept overall?
take this, Maddie. Take this hedge question.
Yeah, I used to do a lot of hedge videos on social media. I think the biggest thing is just understanding that like if you're hedging just every time just every time there's an opportunity to hedge, that you're just paying double juice long term.
Yep.
But I do enjoy a good hedge with a significant middle window at times, especially if I have a lot of like exposure on the game. So there are times I'll do that. I usually like 5+ points in like basketball or NFL. If there's a good middle like window scenario, then there are times I'll hedge there. Trying to think of a good example. Yeah, I mean, we typically haven't hedged on like futures. I mean, if anything, we should have.
Yeah,
I mean,
like,
for the 28-1, like I would have personally at that, depending
yeah,
how
especially at halftime when they were down 28-3 or whatever, or up 28-3.
And I'm not playing, guys. Back then, like I probably had 5,000 in my checking account. So it's not like this was some insignificant Gino's a baller, not even close. Like I might even have been paycheck to paycheck back then. I don't really remember the year, but it was significant. It hurt me for like, I remember I already spent that money in my head.
Right. That's the worst.
Maddie, what I would say too, if we're making jokes, we say like Gardner's hedge. To Maddie's point, if you're gonna hedge off like a 2 or 3 teamer, just leave off the last leg. Like literally, it's sincerely, you're just giving away 10 or 20. It might look good to you, but if you know that if you get to that last leg, it's double juice. I've made a bunch of videos about this. It's hard, right? Like my homies that invested bet openly and like want it, they're like, stop telling people, like let them bet twice, let them do 2, 3 teamers and then hedge it on our site. We get double. But I still like educating people. What I would say is, if it's Maddie, I think you say it this way, right? If it's like, if you need the money or it's life-changing money or bankroll changing money, it's 100% okay to middle, or at the very least, stick with what you liked originally, because you'll be pissed if it happens, and just make sure you get like double your buy-in back. So like you're guaranteeing yourself 1 to 2 units, and it's okay if you're cutting into 5 on the other side.
Yeah, and I was more for, especially with March Madness, Maddie, like trying to say St. Peter's last year, like 100 to, or excuse me, 1,000 to win 10,000, like 10x return there, right? And just risking another 1,000 to make sure you're not losing that initial 1,000 there and still winning 900. That's more of what I was referring to rather than those parlays and such. So wanted to get your, would you advise that for people going into the tournament, especially on those big underdogs?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I mean, when I do the underdogs for March Madness, it's not significant money, so I'm never even thinking about hedging. Like I do the $100 bets on dogs just for fun. And St. Peter's was plus 1,700 against Kentucky. So like, I didn't even look at the live Kentucky money line when it was tied late in the game or overtime. So it's a good question or a good thought. I just never have considered it. I mean, what I truly like doing is like if I do have like a parlay, and the last leg is like a favorite money line, and I can get the other side with 6-7 points and try to window it and hit both, then that's a scenario I would look at for hedging. But to answer your question, I mean, I think the information, if you guys add that value and send that there, I think it's just a personal decision for people based upon their bankroll and what and how much exposure they have. But I just think the biggest thing is so many people hedge just to hedge. Like that's the craziest thing about the industry. And Gino and I talk about that all the time. Like every time there's an opportunity to hedge, someone will DM me and be like, should I do this? Should I do that? And it's literally what Gino was talking about. It's like they have a 5-team parlay and they're on the 5th leg and they want to know if they should just take the complete opposite side with no window scenario And that's when we're like, why are you doing that? You're literally just, you should just leave the last leg off. But yeah, I mean, and I always tell Gino, or I always tell everybody, if it's life-changing money, then don't let anyone judge you for hedging.
Yeah. And it's your money. Do whatever the fuck you want with your money. What I'll say too, if I really had to dive into it, Maddie loves the tables. If you sat next to the tables with me, you'd fall asleep. Maddie wants to grab my chips and push them in. I'm so fucking boring. I'll sit there and drink, and I like when I feel good, I'll start pushing, but then most of the time I'm boring minimum bets. You know all the shit they offer you in Vegas, like insurance on 11, everything they offer you. It's a big fucking fuck you to your pocket. They ain't offering you nothing because they love you. There's a reason they got those cash out buttons there. They added that, and it
don't
ain't
even get started on the cash outs.
It ain't there for you. Let's just say that. So that's the only thing. Hedging is just that cash out button. Now, mind you, it's a little bit better. The cash outs are criminal.
It's better.
But that's all. Sorry for going so deep.
No, you're good. I was gonna mention, in the past, just being transparent. If I was doing, a dog risking $100 to win at 2x to win 200, right? I'd hedge that. But this past season for the NFL, we worked with a live betting company that specializes in momentum and actually gave us live reads on our hedge percentages and if it's worth it and that kind of stuff, and really liked the way we were doing it live with our setup. So that's a big focus for us going into next football season. Just wanted to bring that up because I used to do that more, but after this conversation and this past season with live momentum and stuff, that's big for us. So Maddie, to go back to your point about the $100 on every March Madness dog, would love to hear about your experience last year on this, the origins of this, and if you expect this underdog trend to continue. I actually was reading that last year, yes, March Madness is great for dogs, but this was on Action Network. But St. Peter's was a lot of the reason why that $100 challenge worked. If we take that out for more of the average bettor, it's a lot less of kind of the return there because they had plus 1,700, plus 700, all that. So yeah, just talk us through kind of all of that $100 March Madness dog challenge. But saw that yesterday and thought that was an interesting note.
Yeah. So for sure. So first of all, I do it for fun and for content more than anything. So I don't want to mislead people saying that I know it's going to be profitable every year. But yeah, you nailed it. If there's not a Cinderella team, chances are it might lose a little bit of money. Now, with that said, last year I went 19-46, up almost $1,200 on $100 bets. So there is a world where maybe it goes 23-42, and there's not as big of a St. Peter's, but it could still make a little bit of money. So I could maybe see that happening this year. So I don't know. I think it's interesting to see how it'll play out this year. I did it 2 years in a row in NFL, and 2 years ago it crushed in NFL. This past year in NFL, it crushed for the first 11 weeks, and then it got bet over the last half of the season, and I got crushed collectively for the year. So I'm hoping that trend doesn't happen to March Madness, where a year it does well and then the next year it gets crushed. But I just think it's the best way to enjoy the tournament and root for it, and root for something. And I think that, as long as there's one Cinderella team that doesn't have to go the whole way, but make a run. The thing I like about it is there's not that much risk. There really isn't. Taking all the dogs straight up. It's March Madness. Some dogs are going to win outright. So I think I look at it as what's my worst case scenario? I'm going to be down $500, $1,000, and I get to enjoy the whole tournament and have some action on every game. So that's kind of the way I see it.
Maddie's not going to like this answer either, because I think I pretty much said this in our DD. He has enough reach now. Bro, I had a guy hit me up today asking, can I bulk bet on Bet Openly? I want to bet every team money line. I said, oh, wow, that's an original idea. And he said, I want to bet every dog money line. So he watches Maddie's video. He signs up for Bet Openly, wants to do it. I'm being real with you. There's only one fucking system in the world that will last forever. And that's fade the public. And I mean that. Not because the public.
I was just about to get into that, Gino.
Not because the public's always wrong. Because it's like buying stocks high. When you move the lines that 10, 20% that Maddie's moving it, it matters, dude. And when you do that over 54 games times 20%, that's 10 units. That might be the whole 10 units it's up or down. So that's one. And two, no hate at all, Simon. I have heard no less than 50 motherfuckers say if it wasn't for St. Petersburg. Okay, dog. What if a 1 seed lost instead? What if
like last year, the year before, it was
that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. It's like
I may do it personally myself this year.
If you get to pick a 15 seed to lose, I get to pick a 1 seed to lose then, and then we'll be right back to even. So
you're right.
Look, that's literally the first thing everyone says, right? I can't tell you. I've gotten hundreds of comments saying that exact thing. But the year before, it was number 15 seed Oral Roberts that beat number 2 seed Ohio State, right? So like, it's like, who is the St. Peter's of this year? So everyone says like, oh, if it wasn't for this team, then you would have lost your ass. Like, yeah, that's the whole point of doing this, is because it feels like every year there's one team that makes that run, right? So you just don't know what team it is, obviously. So we'll see what happens this year. Again, I have low expectation for it, especially after NFL this year, just seeing what happened in back-to-back years for the sport. But I don't know. From what people are telling me, it seems like a lot of dogs could make some noise. And again, I don't follow college a ton, but
we haven't dedicated that much time to it. But I will tell you, there were an insanely amount, and this is just anecdotal, of people that were +1.5, +2 that flipped over to being favorites. And Maddie did it kind of on like the closing line, or I forget what Maddie did. But I was like, damn, dude, you're skewing your own data. You're pushing a lot of these dogs to be favorites, and now you're on the wrong team. So, but it's all anecdotal. We never really.
To be fair, I don't think there's going to be that much movement on these college games like there was in the NFL this year. Like the NFL was crazy how many times there was a team that was +1 or +2 and ended up -1 or -2.
I've never seen it move like that across the zero.
Yeah, and the swings were big, right? Like the swings were big on that when that happens so frequently. So it's like, it would have been interesting, Gino, to run the numbers last year in the NFL, like closing lines versus opening lines. But regardless, it would have been down. It definitely would have been down last season just because of how bad week 12 and on was. I think after week 12, I don't know if there was more than one single week where dogs made money. It was just a bloodbath.
And even in playoffs, we weren't even getting close games and all that until.
Yeah, and then you had all these teams late in the season that didn't give a shit. We're looking for next year, and it just was insane.
We'll kind of going off of that, guys. So we're talking about like line movement here. Sharps versus squares, like everybody, public versus like the pros, has always been a talking point in the industry here. I've struggled for years to find like reliable sharp data. For me right now, what we're using is VSiN and their handle percentages. Not even sure if that's like if you guys could elaborate on, the different platforms out there, what you guys like using and what kind of better should stay away from in terms of handle data, because there's so much out there and different things. It's even for me a lot, and I look at this shit every day. So
yeah, we use Sports Insights inside of Discipline the Gens. It's like $250 a month. I do like VSiN. I've heard a lot of good things about it. I like covers.com. It's kind of like a preliminary look at data. But I think the most important thing is not to overvalue what one or any of these sites say as far as, where the money's coming in at, tickets and handle. And then I think Gino could probably speak on a lot of the data he uses and what he values as far as sharp money.
I like VSiN a lot, to be honest. I use mostly Zcode. I'm an old school Zcode guy. If you guys went to that site, you'd be embarrassed at how pathetic it is. I showed it to Maddie once. He's like, "Yep, never looking at that bullshit again."
I have never heard of it. I'll take a look, but
yeah, it's it's been a long time since I've been in a math class. I'm 39 years old, but Zcode is. I'm gonna fuck this up, but I'll give you guys an idea of what a Zcode is. Zcode is essentially the point of inception for EV, to turn something from positive to negative. So there's a way you can write a Z-code. It's actually a thing. Now, the company called Z-code did not invent Z-code. They're just borrowing from mathematics. But they essentially apply Z-code to money lines, and they're just telling you when they think there'll be EV positive things. So technically, I am I don't want to say very different capper, but the guys that I probably work closest with in the capping space are Bender, smart money I talk to every day. There are a couple other dudes that I work really closely with that aren't really well known. And we just trade picks. I'm just like, these are my plays. We don't really tell each other like what's in the magic sauce. We just say, and we want to learn when, and the crazy thing is it's very rare. Like 90% of the time, there's no overlap. 10% we're on the same side and we're almost never opposite. So there's clearly some pattern for a bunch of dudes that are doing the same shit to find. And the reason I tell you that, because a lot of people ask me, hey, I want to start capping. And I'm like, cool. Let me tell you the number one way to start capping just out of the gate without spending a bunch of money on, VSIN, Z code, algorithms and bullshit. All you got to do is look at what I call paper betting. Write down all the lines because you watch so much sports, what they should be. Oppositely, when the spread is better than you think it should be, that does not mean bet it. It means the opposite. A better capper than you made the line. Now, if the line is opposite what you think and the majority starts betting it and the public likes it and that spread gets worse, that is officially a fade the public contrarian play. If everyone fucking and their mom likes Duke and more bets come in on Duke and everyone's talking about Duke's going to the Sweet 16, but that spread goes up a half a point, begging you to take Duke, half a point on Duke's side, and Vegas is begging you, you found the fade the public play. So long story short, I look for percentage of money, line movement, and I look for opposite of what I think should be happening, because I always say the Vegas cappers are better than me. Why do I do all of this? When that happens, you are in bed with Vegas. Your bets, if you win, Vegas wins. If you lose, Vegas loses. It's a pretty damn good place to be in the gambling world.
Yeah.
So that's what I do. And then I add in Z code, VSIN, all of them, just to check, is my read right? And fucking Purdue burned my ass. My biggest bet of this week was Purdue -7, and those dicks were up 22 and laid down like little hoes. And would they win by 2? I think I stopped watching. Yeah, that was my biggest bet of the week.
Yeah, that was wild there. Kind of going off that, you guys were talking about algo plays earlier within the discipline degens. I know when I've built like algos and systems and stuff within Action Network's platform for football, especially looking into weather, coaches, quarterbacks, all of that kind of stuff, and a million more things, obviously. What are you guys, some of the things you use, and don't want to hear the whole secret sauce, but just
I can give you anything. So I'm probably the worst person to ask this because I actually am bitter. I'm bitter Betty. I believe once the system's made it into Action Network, it's fucking dead. I gave out at the beginning of this year, I gave out in DD, I said, take home dogs against the top 25. What is a home dog against the top 25? That's just to fade the public, my dudes. Someone sees a top 25 at a low spread and they just cannot help themselves. So I gave that system out. I stopped betting it about a month in. I think we made like 16 or 18 units on it, which for me is more than enough. And then I heard about this motherfucking system for another 2 months and I watched it bleed to nothing. So the reason I'm down with Action Network, I don't want to seem like I hate all these tools. They're all great tools. OddsJam, we started working with this week. Great fucking tool. They got so much shit in there for you. The problem is once everyone fucking knows it, it's like a stock. If everyone fucking likes Tesla, sure, you want to buy it at 400 or 500, but dude, that value's gone, my dudes. The multiplier on the cap of that company, it's gone, and it's going to come back to earth. And you're going to be the dickhead that started betting it right when all the pros stopped betting it. So that's the only thing I would say is find systems, but look at them like shooting stars. Give them a week or two, and I don't give a shit. If you lose 3 in a row, abandon that. Abandon it, even if it comes back. Just because Vegas catches up as quickly as you do and the sharps, they're one step ahead. And we love social media, right? If I'm giving you all a system, it's too late. Yeah. You missed it. I just gave it to 1,000 people. And like Maddie's system, I think Maddie would have won money in both NFL, and I think he could have won it for a long time. Except he started getting people woke to the, oh shit, dogs are the play. And when that sucks 20% out, dude, I see it on Bet Openly. Before Maddie, I would just swoop up dogs. And now there's more dogs sitting there, favorites, because they're only betting dogs. and they're bringing the line down 20%. Do you know how fucking big 20% is for EV? I live off 3 to 5%. You give me 20, I'm jumping the other way blindly. So I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, no, that's appreciate it, Gino, there. In terms of more kind of betting stuff, so our big thing this past season has always been, I mean, I got 5 TVs monitoring all the games for NFL. We were talking about hedging, do a ton of live betting this year. Also with the company that we do live betting with, we're working on winning margin, and they were helping us kind of determine that. I know winning margin is kind of a new thing, at least for me, it was this season, with like 1 to 6 at like, plus 270, 300. Live betting and winning margins are not for everybody. We use it as a tool, but we'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on it. If you hate it, great too.
I don't hate it.
But we'll just love to hear your thoughts on those 2 things. So that's big for us, and we're looking to learn more about it. And I'm sure all the viewers here are too, because those are 2 more niche topics there. In my opinion, for live betting, at least, the books don't have as much. I mean, they're running an algorithm all week.
Yeah.
So would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, the number one thing, if I had to promo bet openly, honestly, the number one thing, Trevor gave it out on our DD today. He put in a parlay with a book and us, and it paid 40% more on bet openly. Why? That's how bad books rake 4-teamers. They compound the interest they take to mitigate risk. Why do I say that? You weren't talking about parlays. Where else do you think they do that? Live betting. They emotionally tap in. I forget what's the boxer's dude name? Him and his brother are boxers. They've started a betting app.
Jake Paul.
There you go. They're getting into micro betting. Micro betting is just going to be prop betting of live. That's all it is. They can call it some fancy term. It's going to be prop bets live. And why is that a problem? Because bro, prop bets are the juice the most, and live bets are juice the most. That thing is going to be a juice circus, and they're going to tap into the 18-year-olds and milk them dry, and that's cool because then I'll be here to swoop them up. But the reason I tell you that is live betting can be very profitable, especially the system you're talking about. If you're talking about margins, there's sweet spots. I used to give out plays. We partnered with someone, Maddie, my fucking head is dying. Is it Bully the Board? Was that their name? They would give out spreads before the game telling you when to bet them. So the only thing about that, and again, zero hate to them, the only thing about that is if you told me to take favorites when their spread's less, what would I say? Yeah, of course. Like, it's like not aha. It really matters far more on the juice you're paying and the situation. Like, I'll give you an example. If I bet a team before the game that's a favorite and they fumble on their own 20 or throw a pick 6 and they're down 7, I'll sometimes double my bet. But if they're getting fucking stopped at the goddamn line and the line's controlling the game and they're going 3 and out, it's totally different. So I'm such a dickhead. I don't filter anything. I'll yell at people because there's so many people in this space just screaming out to the universe, giving people bad advice. If you're telling someone, hey man, if you can get this favorite -5, bro, what? I have no idea what happened to get there. How could you give that advice? If the advice is, and again, I'll break my own heart, if the reason the Eagles are only -1 is because they fumbled on their own 1, that's very different than if, my Niners went down the field and got 8 first downs running the rock and they couldn't stop the ball. So the only thing I would say, and again, I'm not hating on that tool. It sounds like great. It sounds like a good partnership. I'm legit curious and I'm happy to work with you guys and help in any way possible. The only thing I've seen is all these tools and all these professionals, they hand out kind of generic advice and they sell you kind of generic loops. And it's so anti-situational that they're not pros.
This is, and I'll share, I'm sure Maddie has an opinion, but kind of going off of this, right, and how we used it this season. Your Niners were playing the Dolphins. Was that the game that Jimmy G got hurt, Gino?
I think they came here after. I think we had, well, I don't remember, bro. No, you know what? You're right. It was because after that was Tampa Bay. We beat the Dolphins without Jimmy.
Yeah.
And Tampa Bay was the first game we were starting without a.
So Jimmy got injured during the game, right?
You're right.
And our guys with the live betting and stuff basically told us, based off their models of the quarterbacks and the situation and where the game was at, that there actually wasn't a huge drop off with Jimmy G and Brock Purdy. So when we were like looking at this, we were like, oh, we're going to bet on Miami. Brock Purdy is a rookie, all of this. But then they sent us kind of that information about the situation, and the drop off wasn't there. So those are some of the metrics that they would use in addition to, is a team throwing the ball down the field versus running. There's a lot, and we can get more into it later, but that was just an example from a game where, everybody probably was like, oh, Jimmy's out, we're going to go bet on the Dolphins now. And actually, according to their numbers, it didn't make that much of a difference. And as you saw, Gino, like,
it didn't make any difference.
Year without Jimmy. So that's just an example of kind of the live bet, how we're shifting towards that.
Yeah. I'm for sure. I want to make sure I'm clear. I'm not hating on a tool I don't know anything about. My hate is a little bit more on, there's guys that know a little bit more than most, but they give super generic advice on TikTok because it goes viral. Like if I start off and I say, everyone, listen up, I got a fucking system that's going to make you rich, I get fucking 50,000 views. But Maddie and I don't do that shit. Like you can get those cheap ass views, but then you don't have that base. Like Maddie's as good as a content creator in the whole space. He puts thought into it. He knows he doesn't bet March Madness, or excuse me, he knows he doesn't cap it. So he found a way to let people like him enjoy it as much as him with an edge. That betting dogs is better than betting favorites, and just blindly do so, and you'll be entertained start to finish. So I'm hating not on you guys, not on your tool, more on the dickheads that I see. And like, it sucks because if you want to, it sucks because I know what it takes to be famous on TikTok, but I just can't do it. And it sucks because it'd probably make Bet Openly better. It'd probably give me more users. But I gotta like draw some lines. I'm trying to do both. I'm trying to like keep it 100.
Maddie, any last words on this before we jump into March Madness and the brackets for the rest of the time here?
No, I think Gino nailed it. I mean, I actually like live betting I think if you really understand the sport and situations, I think there are great opportunities. Like I actually love it in the UFC. If you really understand two fighters, how their cardio holds up, how old they are, what their chin is like. And if you understand what type of success they'll have early in a fight versus late in the fight, and you can get in at the right time, maybe on a guy that has elite cardio, but he's getting his ass beat in the first round, but he's going to survive. And now he's, he was a minus 150 favorite, and now he's a plus 120 dog. Like, I do think if you really understand the situation in the sport, I think you can find really good value. And then obviously if you pair that with some of the tools you guys are using and just understand the numbers, I do think you can definitely find a lot of value. So I just think like going off what Gino said, I think people are too quick to double down live and pay crazy juice on live betting, which I think is a mistake.
Yeah. And definitely for the tournament, one thing I'll consider is foul trouble, which is different than football. But getting into that, I'll let Drace kind of take the reins on tournament talk here as we continue along. Yeah.
Yeah, let's switch some gears here. Let's talk about some brackets and March Madness. It's our favorite month, I'd say sports month of the year. So let's just jump into it. A little general question here, but how much of, building your bracket is skill versus luck, in your opinion, would you say?
Ooh, there's for sure luck involved, but I will say from the guys, like there's some professional. Marker Gorgeous is a professional poker player, and I'm in their big bracket tournaments. There's the same 10 dudes at the final table kind of shit. So I think there's a lot of skill to it, but these dudes do lose to people that get lucky. But the same couple dudes are in the final 10. And it's all about, like, I think right before this call, I was trying to feed Maddie in case he wanted to, but he's authentic. You don't need to pretend. I like Xavier's chance to make a run. I really do. I look at their bracket. I'm a big San Diego State fan. I went to San Diego State. Alabama, to me, has the easiest path. Who they got to get past? San Diego State. After Memphis would probably be, not Memphis. That's actually the bottom. I forget who Alabama plays second. But if they get past Maryland, I think it is.
So it could be Maryland and West Virginia that they could end up playing.
So to me, Maryland is more of a challenge than San Diego State. And I hate to say that. So if they get past Maryland, they're fucking cruising to the Elite Eight. So there's skill. You just got to understand situationally what type of teams they're playing and what they're strong and weak against. So for me, it's a boring one because I think Alabama pays the second lowest. I think Houston's number favored and Alabama second. And that's because their path is pretty easy. I think I have U of A beating them, but their path is easy from a situation.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I mean, you're looking at Alabama, they have the easiest path. They play an aggressive style of basketball. I mean, if there's one game where their three-point shooting doesn't go down, they could easily lose that bracket and to be a failure for Alabama. But you're looking at other sides where you might end up seeing Texas play Houston in the Elite Eight, and that's a tougher bracket with those Big 12 teams moving in there. But just an overall question, just big picture. Let's go region by region and start in the South. As you mentioned, Alabama. But what do you think of the two top teams there? I mean, you mentioned Alabama as one. What would be the other team to come out of the South region?
I think I'm going to be boring and have the two team coming out. I think U of A is two. It's hard though, right? I'm high on U. Why are we high on U of A? Because they beat a decimated UCLA barely by like slivers. Yeah, I just think Alabama is going to skate in that region. I want to say my Aztecs give them trouble, but they might not even be in that Sweet 16.
I got some thoughts on your Aztecs, by the way, but good ones.
Yeah. No, I like we're the opposite Alabama, right? We're going to play this slow, boring pace, set up, half court, and we're big. We got a lot bigger. So, yeah, if I had to be, of all my brackets, my most boring one, I will tell you, is Alabama. And I'm only mixing it up and going U of A just because Alabama's second highest in the odds. One thing I'll say, and maybe this is helpful to someone, you play your bracket to win, right? It pays, all in or nothing. Depending on how many people there are, you got to pick a couple people the public's going to hate. Otherwise, you're in 30th place behind 500 other people, and it doesn't matter. So, like, you need a couple matchups where U of A versus Alabama, everyone's going to have Alabama over them. So I need U of A there, whether I even like the game. Even if I only have them as a 30% chance of winning that game, I need it. It's the only way I win my bracket kind of shit.
Gino, yeah, that makes a lot of sense too. Oh, sorry, let me finish this here. But that makes a lot of sense too in terms of what you're saying in fading the public. Like everyone's riding on this one team, but then you go with Arizona, and guess what? Everyone picked Alabama, and that puts you ahead of everyone in that bracket. The next thing I did want to say in that is that when you have a team like Alabama going up against Arizona, it feels like you're going chalk, right? Like you're making your bracket, you have all these 1 seeds, these 2 seeds up there. And I feel that happens a lot in those early brackets, but I'll pass it on to Matt because I think he wants to learn a little bit more about what we're talking about here.
Yeah. Gino, just real quick, what do you like about U of A over Baylor to be the other team out of the South?
Yeah, honestly, I think Baylor's been a disappointment all year. I remember Baylor early this year. I was betting them a lot early this year. I don't think they're clicking at the right time. I think they're not clicking at the right time, and that's problematic. Their confidence seems low to me. I'm actually low on that entire Big 12. Like I just don't. They haven't showed me that they can compete. To me, everyone is high on that division. I'm actually low on both Baylor and TCU. So I do this a lot. Maybe that's
I'm low on Kansas State. Very low on them. And I'll get into
I'm gonna have them winning one game and gone. That if you want to get into my real dark stuff, like yeah, I like Utah. I think it's Utah State that could knock them out after the second win. But yeah, I won't be boring today, guys. I'll give you guys everything you want. But I usually pair people together. I make theories. Hey, are people too high on this division? Are they too low or high on that regional? And if the answer is yes, I can crush my bracket. And then there's years where I'm in last place because I was dead wrong and I got everyone inverse. But to me, last place is as good as fifth if only the top 3 people get paid.
Yeah. Well, kind of going off, Gino, some of the teams here, Dre, so I'll run through some of my thoughts on this region. Alabama's region, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Alabama, they're actually the number one team that gets more contributions from freshmen and sophomores than anyone. They have a good coach in Nate Oates, but experience does matter. So I think that could play a role later on in the tournament. Baylor, we were just talking about, they're one of the best free throw shooting teams, 77% from the line. They actually have the least amount of drop off in production to the bench. I know things get tight during the tournament, but if there's foul trouble, just something to note there. And kind of going back to that 77% free throw percentage, teams who have hit above 77% free throws for the season entering the tournament since 2005 are 60, 38, and 2 against the spread, or 61%. So being a good free throw team is huge. Gino, before I get into your boys at San Diego State, are you big into Ken Palm and his metrics?
Oh, poor Ken Palm.
You don't have to be. I'm not working for the guy.
I love what he did for the industry. But if you look, you would spend a lot of time maybe gaining a half a point of value, which is ironic because I'm the guy that tells you every point matters. But essentially, he is so wide mainstream now that, like, you used to, this is how old I am, guys. You were all still doing diapers. I used to be able to get Ken Palm. It came in like a pamphlet, like
Holy
stack
shit.
papers. And I used to be able to get like 4, 5, 6 points of value. You will never see a Ken Palm final score that's like 7 points in your favor, like the dog winning by 6 and they're +2. Now it's like Ken Palm has them winning by 3 and their spread's 2. You're like, awesome. Like, great. So I don't mean to hate on the dude because I think he's gotten so mainstream, and I think it's like $10 a year or some shit. It's so cheap that it's everywhere. And like, it almost becomes like the tip-off line.
Why is he so cheap? Like, why would you not do a subscription or make it more expensive?
I think he did it out of love for the game, and now he gets so many people. Like, I think he makes hundreds of thousands of dollars off the $10 that he just doesn't give a shit. I think he's that big. Like, literally.
Like, VSiN will post, like, Ken Palm has a projected score, yeah.
Like, I'm pretty sure you're right, Matty. He should be a millionaire and charge, I don't know, $10 a month for the whole, each month for college season. So he gets like $70 from everyone, but he just charges $10. I don't know. And it's like this site that hasn't been touched in. Surprised he even has a site. He probably fucking started that 10 years ago and hasn't.
Yeah, well, it looks like it was from fucking 10 years ago, if I'm being honest there. Was just curious kind of going into San Diego State. But they are, according to Ken Palm, which don't.
No, I love Ken Palm.
They're 9th in adjusted defensive efficiency. And on my research, their top 9 scorers are all juniors and seniors. And you guys have lost like the last couple of years. I remember Syracuse, Drace and I went there and we played you guys. Also, Charleston, Maddie, from a betting perspective, they're the 12-5 seed. A lot of the public actually right now currently is on Charleston.
All over Charleston.
To send Ken Palm, Charleston is the second most overrated team in the country. So interesting there.
You're spitting fire. Hold on, you're spitting fire. So one, Charleston is the exact opposite of San Diego State. They play fun basketball.
Yeah,
they drew a terrible card. I'm taking my Aztecs unbiasedly. My power rankings. This is important to you if we get into capping. I cap pretty old school with power rankings. Yeah. And I love that you mentioned, defense efficiency, offense efficiencies, pace of game, all of these possessions, all of that.
Yeah.
I actually have Tennessee as the number 1 team in the country. Now, don't laugh. I'm not going to.
The point guard?
I'm just telling you where I have it again in a power ranking. Just like the system. Obviously, I don't have that, but I don't have it still. But that is where I have them falling. So when I see matchups, I have San Diego. I think I had them fall at 13th. And this is, again, not me. This is just me plugging in numbers that I think matter, and it spits back out teams to me. So I have San Diego up, and the reason I say that, I have them up higher than most, but I also have Charleston down lower than most. When I make my plays, if I didn't go to San Diego State, this would be one of my biggest plays because it's the buy low against a sell high. It's the perfect storm. Yep. The public's on Charleston, San Diego State's underranked, Charleston's overranked, et cetera, et cetera. So, but yes, technically, Tennessee's making a run. You remember I said that.
All right, without their point guard, we'll see there. My last kind of notes, Drace, on this region. Virginia's playing Furman there. Kind of like Furman here. Actually, a note for this game and then in general. Since 2011, games played before 2 Eastern, where the first half over under is less than 70, are 55, 28, and 3, 66.3% to the under with a 25.5% ROI. Virginia hasn't broken 60 points in 5 straight games, and Furman is 8th nationally at 82 points a game. So Tony Bennett's also 7-13 against the spread in the tournament. Virginia averages a lot of fouls, so I like Furman's spread, not necessarily them to win, but just an interesting over/under for 67% clip there for.
I love that
those early games that Virginia fucking hasn't scored, in an eternity. It feels like
it's going to be a snail's pace. I do see a lot of people on Furman with the spread. It's not that I like Virginia in the spread at all, but when something becomes so popular that I feel like I've lost a margin, it just becomes a no bet for me. So I'm glad you gave me this because I'll probably just ride the under and cheer for a good game or cheer for the dogs. I cheer for dogs.
Tony Bennett's the 3rd least profitable against the spread coach in the tournament. So,
and this is again where I'm situational guy. I want Furman to win. I want Furman and Charles.
I know Maddie wants Furman to win.
Of course, exactly. But selfishly, I do feel like those fast-paced Charleston Furmans, for me, I love that San Diego has that path. And I think it was Alabama. I might be fucking this up. Do you guys know if Alabama played San Diego State in Hawaii in the preseason? In that opening tournament? It was them or Arkansas. It's one of those SEC.
Long time ago.
Yeah, a long time ago. But we matched up well. We went wire to wire. It might be Arkansas. I forget now, but I'm going to go back and look that up. But I like the card that we drew just to have a competitive. It's here in Orlando too on Thursday. I don't think I'm going to be able to drive. It's 4 hours.
Gotcha.
Southeast Missouri State's coming back right now in the playing game.
You got both the dogs live right now?
I'm in my room, so I'm looking at the big screen at Circa.
Oh wow.
They were down. It's about to be almost tied. They're down 35-32. They're going to the line. I would love for the dogs. I would love for the dogs to start off good this year because last year it was like the first 9 games all went to the favorite. So if we get a good start, it would just be huge.
I remember your face those first 9 games. We were sitting in the pit. You know what sucks too, for anyone that wants to play? I love Mississippi State tonight. I gave it out at -2.5. I cannot believe it dropped to -2. The public is all over. Pitt sharps are all over Mississippi State. I'm amazed. My strength is closing line value. I probably have closing line value 7 to 8 of 10 games. So I get embarrassed when I give out a play and I lost a half a point. I think I'm gonna double bet Mississippi State because everything I've seen, Mississippi State's substantially better than Pitt.
Yeah, and that's a smart move there. I also wanted to mention that it was Arkansas that San Diego State played in Hawaii. But just let's move on to the next region here in the East. This is Purdue's region. They probably face off maybe most likely against Memphis when they play FAU in the second round here. But, what are your favorite teams in this region? I know Purdue's been looking good all year. They have the player of the year or the upcoming player of the year, Zach Edey.
That man's too big.
Dude, Memphis just punched Houston in the mouth. So Purdue, this might be the first one I have exiting is Purdue here against Memphis. As crazy as that sounds, not because I actually the spread in that game is going to be Purdue -7 or 8. But it's just one of those ones that if it happens, I'm a king there. And remember, if I have Tennessee going all the way to the final in that region, that smooths up that path for me. So I'm a transparent dude. I have Marquette and Tennessee in that region. But I have that as a long shot with Memphis knocking out Purdue. If anyone told me, hey, Memphis won't get it done against Purdue, I wouldn't argue.
They may not get it done against Florida Atlantic in the first round.
And you're not lying. They're a very hit or miss team. And honestly, if Purdue gets past Memphis, I would have Purdue steamrolling Tennessee. So this is just situational. I literally look at the matchups and the team types, and I need one thing to happen because again, I'm trying to win a bracket. I'm trying to make. I think our bracket, $1,000 bracket pays 50 grand. So like, it doesn't make me feel good to be in 5th place. I need to have compounding things happen. So it's basically one big fucking parlay.
Yeah, Gino, it's cool watching you like not only like cap, the specific games, but also watching you build that into your bracket. It's watching you do it on the fly just now. It's very cool to see.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah, let's talk about, you have Tennessee making its way up to I'm sure the Final Four for you, or at least the Elite Eight in this region.
Marquette.
And Marquette as well. But I'm looking at that 12-5 matchup between Duke and Oral Roberts. Tennessee will have to at least play one of those teams in your hypothesis. But what are you looking at in that 12-5 matchup?
I love Oral Roberts plus the points here. I think Duke is severely overranked on their brand and their name. They also started playing better basketball later than early. But if I had to pick 112, isn't it every year 112 beats a 5?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like 32 out of the last 37 tournaments. There has been a 12 that's upset a 5. And then last year, I believe there were 2 12s that upset 5s.
And someone tried to sell me on VCU. I'm not buying that. I'm going to be the boring guy on St. Mary's. I'm a West Coast bias. Someone else tried to sell me on Drake over Miami. Not necessarily buying that. I like this Miami team too.
Well, one of their best players might be out. That's why the line is moving, and we don't know if he's playing or not.
Makes perfect sense.
For Oral Roberts, Drace, and Gino here. Yeah, this is interesting because Duke, obviously, they went far last year. They got a first-time coach without Coach K going. One stat that I find interesting is, I forgot his name, but he does the kill shot, tracking double-digit scoring runs in games, so 10 or 0 runs or better over the course of the season. A team with more scoring ones than their opponent wins 81% of the time. So Oral Roberts leads the nation in this. Great free throw shooting team, great 3-point shooting team and 3-point percentage. Max Ambris, they played 2 years ago. They were the 15 seed, and he was on that team and now is one of the best players in the country. So definitely agree with you on the covering of the spread. Still kind of trying to decide if I think they're going to win this game, but I think it's going to be one of the better games of the first round, Duke, Oral Roberts.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't know if there'll be that much value because as much as Duke gets public love, it gets public hate, right?
Yeah.
So like this to me is just one of those emotional things. Anyone can win day one. If I'm Oral Roberts as a school program, eliminating Duke is a huge feather in our cap. And they're not going to get much better chances to beat Duke than this matchup. And it's 6.5 points, right? I don't love money lines at 6.5, but I just look, it's plus 275 on Bet Openly. Like, fuck that. That's a unit. Give me my 2.75 or you can have my 1 unit.
That is a great spread there.
It's just like, and again, I'm trying to pave a path for my Tennessee because I know everyone's down on them. I know their point guard's out. I know the narrative. I love contrarian narratives too. I love, like, my wife doesn't watch sports, but I joke that if she just overheard what ESPN talks about and wrote it down, I would fade the fuck out of all of that because it's a couple free points of value.
Yeah, they have all the experts on TV. They're all spreading that to the masses, and then the masses want to go and just bet on it. But again, do you want to bet contrarian? That's a smarter play there. Let's take a look at the West region here. Or Simon, I'll let you go first.
One last thing on this region, just a very adamant point here, and I'm just going to say this now.
You got the notes.
Kansas State, I'm looking at the bracket, actually. I got my notes up here. Kansas State, biggest fraud in the tourney, in my opinion, for their seeding. They went 15-1 at home, 8-8 on the road. They lost their last 2 games before the tournament, and they commit turnovers at the 3rd highest rating among tournament teams. Nothing there screams that like they're going to get anywhere in this tournament. I don't know who their coach is, but in terms of big dogs, like I don't know much about Montana State. Going to look into it, but I don't see Kansas State going far at all. Just wanted to bring that to everybody's attention.
Yeah. And bro, I want y'all to remember I said this. When they talk about like the SEC and bowl games, their record, I want y'all to remember the Big 12's record in this tournament. And when it's 0-3 or 0-4 or 1-5, I want you to remember I said this shit. They're all going home.
Just bet everybody against them and see how that plays out.
I'm going wild against them. I do have them winning this first game, but I have Providence going win-win. I have Providence knocking out Kentucky and then Providence knocking out K-State.
Oof.
And then that's my path for the Marquette, Tennessee. So obviously, if there were no points involved, no competition, if it was just like you're playing against yourself to have the best odds, I would have Purdue would knock out Tennessee, but I know that everyone's going to have that. So I have Tennessee, Marquette. That's my Elite Eight. And I have Marquette beating Tennessee. I like this Marquette team, man. They're playing damn good. I'm really high. Remember how I connect things? I'm really high on Xavier. Marquette gave Xavier the business. And I'm still high on Xavier.
Yeah, they have two great coaches there. You got Shaka Smart at Marquette, who's also had his own run in March Madness, and then at Xavier they have the Arizona coach whose name is Sean Miller. Sean Miller from Arizona, there coaching at Xavier, who's doing a pretty good job. But I can see Marquette definitely making it deep, and I like that note you said about Providence too. They can win a couple games here. Well, let's take a look at the West region here. Would you say this is the best region? I mean, we've got Kansas, UCLA, Gonzaga, and some might even say UConn.
You know the term people use now, what do they call it? Fake sharp. Have you heard that term being used? I actually have the Midwest as the best region.
What teams are you looking at in the Midwest? So Houston, I guess, would be one.
Yeah, the West. I got a couple. If you guys want to go through them,
Yeah.
I think Kansas skates to the Elite Eight. I like Illinois. If Kansas only has to beat Illinois and then St. Mary's, and then I haven't beaten Gonzaga. I think Gonzaga gets a really nice pass. If they only have to go over Grand Canyon and TCU, again, remember I'm low on Big 12. And I think Boise State could knock out UCLA. I know UCLA has depth. They're injured. I get it. These are just points for me. But the tournament I do, you get points based on their seeding. So I'm like, who's a 10 seed that has a chance to get 2 wins? No one better than Boise with an injured UCLA. No minimal depth, fresh injuries. So then I look at it, I'm like, well, fuck, that 3 seed Gonzaga starts to look really sexy because they can get by a 14, a 6, and then a 10 to be in the Elite Eight. No one's talking about Gonzaga. Every year for the last 3 years, we've had to hear nonstop about Gonzaga. No one's talking about them.
They got Drew Timmy, man. I'm pulling for him here.
I do think they drew a tough card in Kansas, but
I don't think Kansas is repeating. That's so tough to do. I don't think they're that much above the pack where they can do that there. But UCLA, their guard Jalen Clark, that their leading scorer and defensive Pac-12 guy of the year, I believe. He's done. So
he's done.
I'm hoping they play each other, that rematch from a couple years ago, that Final Four game. That was incredible.
It's sad. I would have had UCLA to win it all. I thought they got screwed. I thought they should be a 1 seed. They probably still would have been if they beat U of A. Poor guys, man. They were playing good basketball at the right time. And I think they had 2 injuries in the last couple weeks. Sad. But that's me. I have Kansas skating to the Final Four. I don't have them repeating, but I have them skating. All they got to do is get through Gonzaga. But honestly, if you want to be contrarian, Gonzaga in the Final Four would put you in a really good position to win your bracket.
Yeah, I mean, Gonzaga as a 3 seed, they're flying under the radar this year. As they haven't been before. They're dangerous,
Oh, yeah, essentially again, I'm just a generalist. I think you would get Gonzaga as a favorite all the way until the Elite Eight.
I agree with that. I'm looking at it right now. Yeah.
Pretty awesome, right? And if magically Kansas has a hiccup, could you imagine if all Gonzaga has to beat is St. Mary's? Again, they kicked their ass 3 times. I don't even know. UConn, I had a little for them. I'm going to have St. Mary's running them out of the building. St. Mary's is also under the radar.
huge West Coast guy here. You're really biased for them and against the Big 12. You're shitting on
When you
Big
see
12.
when you see my Final Four, you'll change your tune. But yes, it sounds like it just in the West.
Well, let's jump into the Midwest here and wrap up the entire bracket. As you mentioned, Gino, this is probably your best region that you look at in terms of power teams here.
Yeah.
To go in a little bit deeper as to which teams those would be and why.
I love Indiana. I think they're way underhyped. I do believe Miami is also a better team that they're playing. They've had some shitty losses, and they sometimes show up, sometimes don't. They were supposed to be way higher this year. So again, these are sleepers. They're underperformers. They're not anyone that you want to write home about. But I do think Houston takes out Auburn after it takes out North Kentucky. I do think Houston's going to be a game. I wouldn't hate anyone that has Indiana over Houston there. The reason I moved them forward is just number one, to win it all. They're going to, in my opinion, make it to the Elite Eight just on that. I have Xavier playing them, but how I have Xavier getting there is a little different. I have Texas and Penn State winning. I have Penn State over Texas A&M. A lot of people are not going to like that. A lot of people are not going to like that. I was thoroughly impressed with what I saw Penn State do in a loss to Xavier. A loss. Remember, I love seeing teams impress me on a loss. You get them way cheap. So if you don't want to go money line on Penn State, I get it. Take the points. But I like Penn State's money line value there. I like Penn State to beat Texas. I am not high on Texas. I have not been all year.
They just blew out Kansas.
I'm just not high on them. I'm just telling you guys. If we only just reported what someone did, I would just take the 2 seed to beat the 3 seed and the 3 seed to beat the 4 seed. I just haven't been impressed with Texas. I've watched them show up and not show up, and I understand. I just think Kansas's path is easier. So I think Penn State comes in being super gritty, and I'm trying to get Xavier to the Elite Eight. How do I do that? By having Penn State take out Texas for me.
You're starting to get Xavier to grow on me. I was going to mention about A&M. Penn State, what's his name? Pickett or whatever his name is. I watched a couple of their games, and they very competitive, obviously won very tight games. So that bodes well for the tournament. But quick story on A&M. Last year, Buzz Williams got screwed out of the tournament, went off on a rant about them, and now they get seeded 7th. What are your thoughts on how they were seeded this year? And do you think that the committee, after he shit on them, put them in the spot?
Were they one of the last ones in? I think they were.
No, last year they were out. They went into NIT.
No, I know. But you know how you see like the first 4 in and the last 4, but it's not like 16 seeds. It's all like fucked up, right? You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah. I'm not sure exactly.
Like ASU was one of the last ones in. I don't even know where.
They're 11. I think they're in the playing game.
So like that's what I'm saying. They're in 11, but they're one of the last ones in. So it's fucked up. I think Texas A&M was one of those as well. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure. I looked at the last.
People are saying they're underseeded. Is what I've been reading at least.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying is, ironically, they're a 7 seed, but they were one of the last 4 in. They got handed a fucking gift, and to me, what is that spread? Is the spread 4?
I don't even know for that game.
I'm just looking on my thing real quick. 3.5. Like, dude, Penn State plus 135 all day. Yeah, these are. Yeah, I mean, I did all this, but I'm just refreshing my memory. I just like Penn State's chances in this. I think it will be ironic if they get bounced if they get routed with a 7 seed by a 10. I also, one of the favorite tournaments, I'm going to add a bunch of betting styles to Bet Openly. Just coding is a little complex. One of my favorite tournaments ever that I do in this seedy ass site is you have to pick, it's like a survivor, but you have to pick a team a day, and you get the points based on their seed. And you can never use that team again. So you want to take that 12 because whoever gets the most points when it ends wins the pot. So to me, like Penn State's a great play there. Another great play that we were just talking about was Providence versus Kentucky, 11 seed. You know, I get 11 points for that one. You can't use a 1 seed early unless you're guaranteeing wins. If they keep winning, you end up with no teams. You know what I'm saying? So you need to take teams that you think are going to win today, but not tomorrow. So I'll invite you all in when I build all this shit. But we're going to do a bunch of cool shit like that where basically it's playing chess, but playing chess with money.
That sounds good to me.
But
Yes.
yes, so my biggest bracket I'm high on is the Midwest. I just think there's some dangerous teams in there. I think people are going to be sleeping on these teams because they're going to see them all play each other. People are low on Indiana. I like Indiana. People are low on Miami. I like Miami. I like Houston. I like Xavier. Texas is playing great. I'm just low on me. I hate that I have to repeat myself because I know you're listening. Remember, I picked a division that I'm low on. And where does Texas fall?
Big 12 right there.
That's what I did. So I'm not a crazy person. I'm picking a division that I believe is bloated. If it is and I'm right, I have value fucking everywhere.
Yeah, the Big 12 has been bloated. A lot of great teams throughout the regular season, but we all know that changes in March.
Exactly.
One thing I did want to mention about the Midwest region was Houston. So we know the Final Four is in Houston. We also know that Houston might be the team of destiny because it is Jim Nance's last Final Four. He's an alumnus of the University of Houston. So is there a chance that maybe he gets his dream and watches his team win the national championship in that city on his last Final Four? Just, just a thought there.
It's fresh in my mind that Marquette just kicked their ass. And I can't get over that. So my Final Four has Houston in it, I think, has them losing. So I have Marquette beating Arizona, and then I have Marquette beating Houston. I got Marquette to win it all.
Wow.
What are the odds for Marquette to win it all right now?
Probably 30-1. Probably getting like 30-1. And that, to Maddie's point, I don't know. I can't name half the players in this tournament. I can't name half the point guards. So that might be one time, going back to your original question. If I get Marquette in the Final Four and I'm 30-1, that's when you might see me hedge. Because if I have 1,000 win 30 and I'm down to 4 teams, I might have some fun with it. And just pull out, betting 5K against them each game and walking away with 5K every time they lose.
Yeah, so that seems like Marquette is the best shot. They are a good team. They look great in the Big East tournament, and they have a great coach in Shaka Smart. But one of the final questions here, and we're going to wrap up soon, but, you're talking about the type of pool that you're in or the bracket that you're in. It relies heavily on the seed number, right? You're looking at these double-digit seeds because in the end, you'll get the most points. So let's talk about Cinderellas out of, this whole bracket, and we'll go around the room here. The whole bracket, what Cinderella are you guys looking at? Personally, I like Furman to win a couple, maybe 3 or 4 games. About 3 games going to the tournament. Not too high on Virginia, but I'm going to stick right there. Gino, what about you?
Yeah, and I hate to say this with my San Diego State, that's a great round 2 matchup. If they can get past Virginia, they can get past San Diego State. They play the same style of basketball. So I like it. So you're saying they would lose to Alabama, or you're saying they could even run Alabama?
I'd say they would lose to Alabama, just with the way that Alabama plays.
If I had to do a non-sexy Cinderella for the point thing, I would say Providence. Providence to beat Kentucky, Providence to beat Kansas State.
Maddie, any Cinderellas you got an eye on?
Oral Roberts.
Not a boy. I mean, shit, right? They give Duke the business. They can give Tennessee the business.
Absolutely. Simon?
Oh, I was gonna say I do not like Purdue at all. Oral Roberts has all the candidate, traits of a Cinderella team here, but if I had to pick, like you're saying, one big dog here, I haven't decided yet. I mean, I kind of want to ride with Maddie on Oral Roberts here, just based off all the experience and especially winning 2 games in the tournament 2 years ago. But biggest fraud of the tournament again will be Kansas State. Just mark my words on that. I don't know. Maybe they get upset in the first round by Montana State.
Yeah, anything could happen. And then Monahan? Any Cinderellas that come to mind?
Honestly, another 12, but I guess I could consider Charleston.
Oh,
I think they're playing hot right now. I think they could make a deep run.
I love it. You two have, if San Diego State ain't losing to Charleston, they're losing to Furman. You got my boys gone.
I like your boys.
If I had to add one more, it's Boise State. I just have Boise State beating Northwestern and beating UCLA.
Yeah, that's a good path for them there too. I mean, they get to beat the 7, then they most likely will play UCLA there unless something tragic happens. And they have a chance to, beat UCLA, who's been down a player too. So
Exactly.
definitely agree with you there. So
those are good points.
They're all good points. And, that's what I love about March Madness. You could be right, you could be wrong. But again, at the end of the day, we're just having fun. And that takes you back to just being a disciplined degen as well. You're smart, you're putting in these correct bets, but at the same time, you want to have fun and kind of, maybe throw a long shot and maybe put a parlay in. But for everyone that's listening, we could wrap it up here. But what would you say are your top 3 tips for betting during March Madness?
Maddie, start off.
Bet the dogs is mine.
Figured.
And technically, if you wanted to be like a little more thoughtful, it sucks because that's all the ROI, and I'm gonna have to put my fucking shoe in my mouth. But technically, a 1 seed's never lost, so that's $400 you could put back in your pocket.
Yeah.
No, Virginia lost as a 1.
Did they?
They did, yeah.
Okay, so
once ever, yeah. No, I've had a lot of people ask me, like, am I skipping the 1 seeds? Or people ask me, should they skip the 1 seeds? And my answer is yes, probably, but me personally, I'm not gonna skip them because to me, I'm doing this for fun. And if I skip them 1 seeds and a 1 seed loses, I'm gonna hate myself.
The year you skip them is when they're.
I'm not skipping them.
The ROI is like the whole tournament if you get one of those to fucking hit.
You're done betting for the rest of the
Exactly.
fucking tournament there.
Exactly.
That's one. Another one I would say, a big rumor out there that tails around is if you're going to take a dog, take a money line, don't take the points. That's a huge rumor. They're some of the sharpest guys in the world take points. So I get that you can point at certain data sets like in the NFL where dogs win outright, and I understand. But I would just tell anyone, if you're doing this to be entertained and mitigate losses, take the points, because it is a huge swing when you go from winning to losing. When they lose by 1 to 5 and you have 5.5 or 1 to 3, whatever. So that's what I would say is if you're going to take the dog, take the points. And if you really want to gamble, it's super boring, divided by 2, do half a unit on the money line and half a unit on the points.
Well, I was going to say, Gino, this was one of my questions earlier. NFL, right? The field goal, touchdown, 3, 6, and the extra point would be 7. Basketball, the numbers are all over the place, and there's a lot of fouls and shit at the end.
Fouls and bullshit.
In terms of the spreads, like the numbers aren't like football. So how do you decide 5.5 versus 3.5? Like what are the common margins of victory in basketball? And there probably isn't as sure of numbers as like the 3, the 7, the 10, 14, all those good things.
Yeah, it's the way to answer that's a little different is it's more about the EV. So on most games, I have the true line and I have the percentage to win. So believe it or not, anyone can do this without any skill at all, just if they want to start looking. You'll see 2 teams playing each other with the exact same spread, don't have the same money line. So it's pretty easy to scope out where the better value is. Like literally, if one team minus 3.5 is minus 200 on the money line, and another team minus 3.5 is minus 160, the value is on the one team minus 160 and the other team minus 3.5. It's that those numbers jump right into your face. And why does that happen? It has everything to do with the market. It's where people are betting more money on and how they move it. So technically, if the ESPN odds, even though those are bullshit, show both teams have a 60% chance of winning, but one has a money line lower than the other, again, these are really off the cuff ways of finding value, but it's just a quick way to see that not all 3.5 point spreads are created equal. But I take a lot of points. So I do that often.
No, so, I like that. And for me, Trace, based off your question on like March Madness betting tips, doing a lot of the live betting here, looking into foul trouble. Got like 20 minutes at halftime to really make a decision. As we know, Gino, Maddie, Trace, Matt, there's a lot of runs in basketball. Unlike football, there's way more points, way more swings. We're talking about the kill shots or kill runs of 10-0. So just looking at that at halftime or early in the second half, I think trying to get, either a favorite that goes down. I remember last year, Baylor, North Carolina was a crazy comeback there. So I like to take that kind of value during the game in certain spots, Gino, but especially with the spread there as well. So.
And before we end, let's all give a prediction. How much money is Maddie winning or losing? How many units? If he's betting 1 unit on every game.
How much was he up, Maddie? How much were you up last year?
It was just under 1,200.
12 units.
12 units? Okay.
Who's going first? Last.
This year, there was a lot of parity in college basketball in terms of the way that these teams were shifting back and forth. I think a lot of these teams, the way that they were seeded, they just don't fit properly. So I think there's a lot more underdogs that have better potential. I think Maddie's going to be hovering around that 15 unit mark there.
I agree. I was going to say somewhere around the 10 to 12 again, but like Dre said, yeah, like I think this is the first year in a while that there's just not been like true two powerhouses that we know are making it to at least the Elite Eight, if not the Final Four. So I genuinely think, everyone says it every year, anything can happen come March Madness. I think this is the year that anything can genuinely happen just with how basketball has played in college this year.
I agree with both of you. What I would say too, and I don't mean to insult these schools, the 1 and 2 favorites to win it are Houston, Bama. Like what? We don't have those like traditionals,
Exactly.
Like Bama wins too much in fucking college football. I don't want to see them win.
Exactly. So
I think they're too young to win this tournament.
I'll be boring. I'll go 7.5 units. Maddie's going to make 7.5 units. I'm getting scared though. If we all think he's going to make money.
I think he's going to be at 20, and I don't think there's going to be like a St. Peter's, but I think there's going to be a bunch of like 11, 12, 13 even seeds that win a couple, more. Like remember UConn won the whole thing. Something like that I think will happen based off of the parity and some of these regions and stuff. Because honestly, Purdue, Bama, like these 1 seeds, I don't know. I look at them and I'm like, I don't think Kansas is going to repeat. Purdue, Purdue lost to St. Peter's last year and they had Edey and this other big guy. Like if you're losing to St. Peter's in the tournament, I know he got a lot better, but it's a similar team. I see them getting bounced early. So I definitely think, those 1-8 matchups too will be what we're talking about. So I'm hoping 20 units and maybe I'll jump in and join in on the action with Maddie for some fun here as well.
And my last question, y'all know I put my cards on the table. Who do you have win, or what's your finals matchup? And who do you have winning?
Yeah, so in one of my brackets, I call it just the gut bracket, just gut reaction. Like I feel like it comes out being the best. But I had Arizona, Duke, Gonzaga, and Houston there. And I did buy into the hype where I had Duke and Houston, and Houston winning it all there. So I did buy into that hype, just went with the gut there. But that's who I had winning it all there in the Final Four.
I like it. Monahan?
No, I'm looking at it now. I gotta take a peek and honestly finalize my bracket myself. I'm gonna go on top with Drace though. I do like Duke a lot this year. I really do. I think they're gonna be undervalued, and like you said earlier, talking about name value that Duke has, they are undervalued, and I'm gonna put my cards on the table with them.
Savage.
I got an interesting one here. I'm looking at I'm still gonna adjust probably, but as of right now, I filled it out with my roommate here. So I have Gonzaga winning it all, actually over Bama. But out of the East region, I have Kentucky coming out of it. I know you like Providence there. And then out of the Midwest, who the hell was it? Houston there. So Gonzaga finally getting that notch there with Drew Timme as the senior over Bama on that lack of experience and such. So Kentucky team I'm keeping right now, but that could change, in a day or two. That this is one of my brackets, so still need to finalize the research and everything. But that's what I got right now.
Dude, I love it. Nothing would make me happier for Gonzaga to finally raise that trophy.
Yeah, no,
I'm telling you, dude, it's fuck. I don't want to get into NFL right now because my heart will break all over. But dude, an easy path is important. And Gonzaga has an easy path. And I'm not saying they're going to be favored over them. They're not. But that's pretty nice to be able to get there and just have to have one really good game to get to the Final Four, you know? So I think they drew. I know everyone's big on that West, but UCLA for me ain't it. Like you said, Kansas hard to repeat. I got the Midwest higher than the West. One thing I'll tell everyone, and we can jump. If you're an amateur and you like a fun bet, a really great bet is to pick one region to win it. And essentially what you get to do is cheer for the high seeds in your region and cheer against the high seeds in every other region. So you just put one unit down, nothing crazy, and you have your bracket that you're hoping all the good teams make it. And then on everything, you're praying for Cinderellas. So again, I try and help people gamble because people make a lot of mistakes. So one of the cheapest ways to really enjoy the tournament is one unit on one of the regions.
There you have it. That is the fast track way to be a disciplined gen with Gino Donati and Maddie Betts here. Should be a fantastic March Madness. Guys, it was amazing having you on. You guys gave us so much knowledge on March Madness, on betting, and just all those fun ways to really have fun, but also bet smart too. So I guess that covers the Make Vegas Pay podcast here, episode 8 with Maddie and Gino. And other than that, everyone, thanks for listening. Matt and Gino, again, can't thank you guys enough for coming on. Thank you so much.
Cheers, my dude. Make me look pretty and Maddie look old.